And now, ladies and gentlemen, for the most contrived introduction in the 10 years of Jib Talks. Okay? Listen up. So when I first went to Gibraltar Cultural Services with the idea for Jib Talks, they weren't very convinced. Okay? They were a little bit uncertain. They were not sure about the event. So I said to them, I said, Seamus, we need to have faith. And we finally got her. Ladies and gentlemen, former Miss Gibraltar, Faith Torres.
Okay, well, there's more people than I thought. Okay, well, thank you, Seamus, for that lovely introduction. And hi, good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for being here today. It's truly a privilege to stand before you and share a bit about my journey. So as I think about where I am today, I can't help but reflect on just how unexpected this whole path has been, especially when you consider the two worlds I find myself in, science and pageants. If you had told me a few years ago that I'd be both a biomedical science graduate and a pageant queen, I would never have believed you, but kitamo. So as I share my story, I hope some of you might find yourselves in it. And if nothing else, I hope it sparks a little inspiration or brings a smile to your face. So let's start with the science part. I'm a scientist. Well, I'm in the process of becoming one. I've got my degree and I'm just waiting to do my practical work, my internship, to really dive into the field. And I'll be honest, it's tough. Science is a world where women like me often feel like we have to work 10 times as hard just to be heard. It's still a male-dominated field, and in many ways, women still have to fight for the respect and recognition. But here's the thing. When we add women to the equation, things change. You unlock new answers, fresh perspectives, and suddenly you're solving problems in ways that you've never done before. And that's the power that we bring to the table. But as proud as I am, I'll be honest with you, it's been incredibly challenging. And I'm not just talking about the tough coursework or the late night research sessions at the lab. There's been a mental battle too. For most of my life, I've struggled with anxiety disorder. I mean, it's different for everyone, but for me, it's like I'm in a glass cylinder and I can see everyone and everyone can see me, but only I can see that there's water and it's rising. And I say I'm fine until the water gets to like my chin, like I am right now. And then I can't hear anyone, I can't make sense of much, but no one else can see that I'm drowning. I know it's very exaggerated, but it's true. That's what it feels like. And it didn't just start when I entered the world of academia. It has been there for as long as I can remember. As I got older, I found that my struggles with confidence deepened. It wasn't just anxiety, it was depressive episodes, eating, bullying, especially when I started university. If you ever had a time in your life where you feel like everything is falling apart, physically, mentally, emotionally, you'll understand when I say I hit rock bottom. Mental health wasn't just something I had, it consumed me. It was like I was living in a fog, and it was one that I couldn't get out of. I started to seeing the world through a distorted lens where everything was just so overwhelming. It was like I was stuck within the parameters of my own mind, and it wasn't somewhere I wanted to be. But here's where the story takes a turn. I made a choice. I started with small steps that didn't require grand gestures, but were crucial for my well being. I began exercising, not because I'm trying to meet some beauty standard, but because it's an act of self care. Exercise made me feel stronger and more in control. And then I just started appreciating the little things, like when I go for a walk and the warm sun hits my face, or how I know that a good cup of hot chocolate can just shift my mood in an instant. And I made another important decision. I stopped hiding. I began to talk openly about my struggles with anxiety and mental health. I wanted to own it and not hide it as if it was something I had to be ashamed of. I wanted to embrace all my imperfections because that's actually where my strength lay. I began seeking help through psychologists and whatever else I could find to help me heal. And let me tell you, that was the most empowering thing that I have ever done. And it wasn't just about, fixing everything at once, but taking the small steps towards the right direction. And that's when slowly things began to get better. I started rebuilding my confidence piece by piece. And we all have to know that you don't have to be perfect to be worthy. No one has to hide their struggles to be strong. I could embrace who I was, flaws and all. But was that enough for me? No. So you see, I've always dreamt of doing something important. Something that would challenge me and force me to face my fears. I know, not like running the Sevilla half marathon that I missed the memo for. But what I'm talking about is something that I never ever thought I could do. Making myself visible to everyone so I could be a mirror for all those going through something similar to that I did. So I started thinking about ways I could do this. I went back and forth with ideas like, should I start a YouTube channel? Should I upload vlogs? Nothing really felt like the right fit. But then I started thinking about an area dominated by women: empowerment, advocacy, a global platform where one woman per country has a chance to come together and participate in something bigger than herself. We got there: pageants. So for months, I had the application form sitting on my desk and it was signed and ready to go. But every time I thought about handing it in, I wasn't brave enough. What if I make a fool of myself? What if I messed up the interviews? We'll know how that went. But then sometimes you just need someone to believe in you. And for me, that was my niece, Isabel. One day she saw the form sitting on my desk and she saw that it was ready to go. I was obviously not there. And she took it and handed it in for me. And in that moment, I could have killed her. But that single act of faith changed my life. I faced the challenge and I went through with it. Just by being a contestant, there's a journey. And as we all saw, yes, I messed up the interview. Did I walk well? Absolutely not. But that didn't matter because the judges weren't looking for something perfect. They were looking for sincerity and a real person. Someone who, even when they stumble, they can get back up. And that is now the mindset I carry with me for life. So I've gone international twice now. I went to Miss World and recently I've gone to Miss Grand International. And being a pageant girl from Gibraltar, all you do every day is explain where Gibraltar is, who we are, because no one seems to know that. So every time I show up with my sash reading Gibraltar, I always give them the down low. I explain where it is. I kind of like rehearse the speech and tell them, because I have a conversation multiple times a day. And I think everyone's understood until the girl I'm speaking to is like, but your English is very good. And I'm like, girl, well, anyway, sometimes I feel like the director should just give us brochures to have ready, and it just should just be titled "I'm a Janita" and have like all the, all the info they need. I often feel like I'm navigating the world of international pageants without much attention. So there's the powerhouses, right? So there's Philippines, Venezuela, India, who have a very strong legacy of crowns. And just a few months ago, I was in Miss Grand, and my two best friends were from Peru and France. And we had a flight from Cambodia to Thailand. And then it struck me, if the international stage had been in Europe, then maybe more people would be aware about Gibraltar. But in Asia, that's a whole different story. And pageants in Asia are everything. The energy is just unreal. They love them. There were balconies just packed with fans waving flags. The corridors are filled with crowds and screaming fans at every turn. And there was one guy that kept shouting out the name of different countries and getting a selfie with all of them. And it was also fast paced. Everyone is rushing, we're all trying to get to the coaches. The security is just trying to usher us along. And then obviously I hadn't taken a photo with anyone. No one is going to shout Gibraltar when you've got like Miss USA and things like that, right? And I hear Miss Peru, Miss France, Janita, I'm in Cambodia. Like, I was like, could it be? I told the security, I'm like, no, we have to stop here. This is the only photo I'm clearly going to take. Like, and the guy told me, I've been to Gibraltar. I went on the cable car, I saw the monkeys. It was the whole experience. And I'm a huge pageant fan. So I watched you place at Miss World. And in that moment, I was like, wow, Gibraltar isn't that unrecognizable after all. And let me tell you, being Miss Gibraltar isn't all, it's very fun, but it's not all glitz and glam. It's been tough. And I didn't have the same resources as some other contestants. A lot of them had, financial assistance, prize money, full wardrobes. They have teams and teams of stylists. They get given a car, a house, like the whole thing. They're a celebrity in that country. But me, I had my parents' support, my own determination, and a really solid budget plan. I had to fund everything myself: flights, suitcases, dresses, public appearances, even visas and vaccines. I took on a full time job to help cover the costs, but unfortunately, that at the time didn't play out very well. But you know what? I didn't quit. I kept going. And eventually, I became the first Miss Gibraltar in over a decade to place at Miss World. And I'm the first Gibraltarian to place through a judge's choice. And that's huge, not just for me, but for Gibraltar in the pageant world and for anyone who feels like they aren't enough. And I know pageants get a bad rep sometimes. People say they're about over sexualizing women, but if that's your perspective, you really don't understand pageantry. Pageants are about celebrating who you are, showcasing your talents, and empowering women. They teach confidence, discipline, self love, and they give women a platform not to be objectified, but to be heard and to take up space in a world that sometimes tries to silence you. And it saddens me that in recent years there has been several initiatives to ban pageants, especially coming from those who champion women's rights. How can we fight for women's freedom to choose and then deny them the right to celebrate themselves in the way that they see fit? That just doesn't make sense to me. If we truly advocate for pro choice, why stop when it comes to how I choose to celebrate myself? It feels like imposing these obstacles disregards the efforts of hundreds and thousands of women who have entered themselves into pageants or who want to enter themselves into pageants and who want to come together and advocate for important global causes. Would I be here today or represented my country twice if it weren't for pageantry? Would I have had the platform to run a mental health campaign or be invited to City Hall to speak for Women's Week in 2023 about women in science? The beauty of pageants is that they unite women across race, religion, body type, and socioeconomic status. And we empower each other in personal growth, advocacy, and community involvement. For Gibraltarian women, unfortunately, the challenge is even greater now as we can't compete with any of the other countries on resources to participate. I face these challenges, and it's not easy to maintain a high standard with little support, especially when you're Gibraltar on a global stage. But with all things considered, I do believe my reign was exceptional, if I do say so myself. As I wrap up, let me leave you with one final thought. No matter who you are or what struggles you may be facing, you are worthy. You have every right to shine, take up space, and to be celebrated. Mental health isn't a choice, but recovery definitely is, and that journey is yours to own. Whether it's in science, pageantry, or any other field, you don't need anyone's permission to become the best version of yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Faith Torres.